In Black Clover Mobile, Rill is one of the most underrated characters. I think he is genuinely really good. And so today we're going to talk about how you guys should be building this character. What skills you want to upgrade first, what skill cards you want to equip to him, what gear you want to run on Rill, whether or not you should enhance him, what talents you want to do on his talent tree, and then of course what teams he is going to fit well on. So let's start by talking about his passive skill, because right off the bat, his passive skill is insane. So upon using skill 1, always inflicts an extend debuff duration by 1 turn debuff on an enemy. A guaranteed extend debuff duration is insanely good. Like, that's crazy good, okay? But then when we look at his actual skill 1, the effect is weird, all right? So keep in mind, the passive saves skill 1 and makes it useful. Without the passive, the skill 1, you'd be like, well, what is this doing on a debuffer character, okay? So upon having 4 or more SP is the special points in your special gauge for your special move, attacks after granting an increased magic attack level 1 buff. So it literally just makes him do 42% more magic attack. I mean, that's not like fantastic on a debuffer, right? Because a debuffer, their stats are not built to do massive amounts of damage. So why are they giving him a damage skill here? Like, it's beyond me. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I guess he can do a little bit more damage on his skill 1 because of this. But really, the thing that saves the move is this passive right here that gives him extend debuff duration guaranteed for 1 turn on an enemy, which is very nice, okay? The only thing that could make this better is if this was an AoE extend debuff duration, then that'd be better. But like in terms of like if you're taking on a single boss in PvE, this is actually very good, being able to extend the debuff by 1 turn. And then for his skill 2 is an AoE. It's called Paint. It inflicts a reduced defense level 3 debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, which is a 60% reduced defense. That's pretty good. And then 50% chance to remove 2 buffs from an enemy. And then for each removed buff from an enemy, inflicts a 20% increased damage taken debuff on them for 2 turns. That is honestly really good. This part right here though comes from a skill card, so you do need to have a skill card to get that. And so for that reason right there, I do think his skill card is the best to run on him, literally because of that. And as you upgrade this skill, you increase the buff removal activation rate by 10% at level 4 and 10% at level 5, making it a 70% chance to remove 2 buffs from an enemy, okay, which is really good in a boss battle. Like, you can remove 4 to 5 from the enemy, and then you reduce their defense by 60%, and then you increase the amount of damage they're taking by 40%. It's kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts, right? Because you're removing their defensive capabilities and then reducing their defense and increasing the damage you're doing. It's just insanely good. Like, that is one of the best debuff skills of all time in the game so far. And then of course it's AoE too, so it doesn't just have to work against a single target boss. It can work against a wave of powerful characters, right? So that's honestly not bad. And even in PvP, that's not terrible. Being able to remove buffs from the enemies and being able to reduce their defense, like, that works pretty well with other AoE characters who do damage, like, you know, Season 2 Noelle. So that's pretty dang good. Okay, and then for his special skill, Spring of Restriction, inflicts an incapacitate level 3 debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. This isn't the highest incapacitate that you've seen. Like, Charlotte and Nebra technically have higher incapacitates because this one only does 50%. But this one is an AoE incapacitate, which the other ones don't do. So that's pretty dang good, okay? And then it has a 40% chance to inflict a stun status ailment on an enemy for 1 turn, and that is per enemy because this is an AoE once again. So you have a 40% chance to inflict a stun on each enemy, which is really nice in PvP because that means you are more than likely going to stun 1 or 2 of the enemies unless they have like stun resistance, okay? Which is possible. They can run skill cards like that and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. And then for the combo skill is actually good on Rill. A lot of times combo skills aren't good on characters. This one is actually pretty decent. 80% chance to inflict a buff immunity debuff on an enemy for 1 turn. Okay, so what this means is the enemy can't receive buffs or use their buffs, and that is insanely good. 80% chance though, it kind of sucks that it's not like a guaranteed chance. Like, Nebra has a guaranteed buff immunity with her skill card equipped, but you do have to equip her skill card to get that benefit. Whereas Rill just has this on his combo skill, which is nice. Okay, so that's honestly like very underrated and a very good skill to have. And so Rill is definitely an option you could even be using right now in squad boss battle. Okay, so he's really good. And then looking at skill cards, like I did say, his skill card is probably the best in slot because of what it does right there. But in addition to that, the passive is a 60% chance to inflict a 10% reduced defense debuff on a random enemy for 2 turns upon using a special skill. So even more defense down, which is very, very good. However, it's only a 60% chance to inflict it, so keep that in mind. That's not the greatest in and of itself. And then for other skill cards you could be running on him, you could run other debuffer cards, like Lotus's would be good. Has a 25% chance to apply 2 to 10% speed reduction to an enemy for 1 turn upon attacking. Like, just in general, whenever you have a debuffer, you can run other debuffers cards on them, and those are probably going to be the best for him. So Lotus's is a good one, specifically more for like PvP with the speed reduction. Another good one would be Charlotte's. Has a 35% chance of applying 10 to 20% reduced crit resistance to an enemy for 2 turns upon attacking. This one is probably better for PvE, but it would probably work okay for PvP. And another option that I like personally is this SR option, Silent Stone. It does have to be on a debuffer mage. It applies a 30 to 50% increased defense and 10% increased endurance to yourself. It is very easy to get the 50% increased defense because you're able to get SRs fairly easily and max out the cards. So a 50% defense increase, that's really good for like both PvP and PvE. It's an underrated card, honestly. I don't see enough people using this card, and it's so good when it comes to defense, right? So that's definitely an option you guys could be running. And those are kind of what I would consider the best skill cards for Rill. Now, in terms of gear, you should be aiming more for sets than overall stats. Your stats don't really matter since he is a debuffer character. Now, if we look at his speed, he has a base speed of 107, which is not terrible, but typically you want your debuffers to go before your attackers, and a lot of attackers have a higher speed than that. So you're going to want mobility gear on Rill to make him faster than your attackers, okay? And so ideally you're going to have a gold set and a full gold set on Rill. That gives him speed +5. That is very, very nice. And then for your second set, what you're going to go for, I would recommend defense to give him more survivability, especially if you're going to be trying to use him in PvP, because Rill can get clapped pretty easily, okay? And then additionally, like if you were to look at stats here, what should you be going for? Attack or magic attack? Well, you should be going for magic attack. Right now on this character, I only have attack on him, right? I don't have the magic attack that I would like to have. So keep that in mind. This is not what you want to do. You want to have magic attack here, magic attack, okay? And then to have the other pieces of the set, you obviously have to have defense and HP for some of them to get these sets, right? But in general, the main stat you want to go for is magic attack. So that's the gear for Rill. Now, whether or not you should enhance him, I'm going to say right now, probably not. Because look at what this does. Grants a 7% increased damage dealt only when attacking a defender. It's very specific, and he's a debuffer. Like, yes, he removes defense, and he can remove defense from a defender, but he's never going to do that much damage himself. So why are we giving him the damage up? You know, grants 14% increased damage dealt when attacking a defender. That's at 5 stars. That's not even that much extra damage. Like, if it was like, give an ally an extra 14% damage, like, heck yes, that would be cool. Or partnered ally, that would work really, really well. But this is not very good. It's definitely not worth it. You get a little bit of extra damage resist. By the time you get to 5 stars, it's just not worth it to enhance Rill, like even at all, okay? So it's just in terms of like enhancing him, I wouldn't even recommend it. I would recommend trading in the pieces of Rill personally for some other pieces of other characters. But if you happen to get extra dupes, you know, go for it. Just definitely don't waste your versatile mage pieces on him. In the end, it's totally your call. It's up to you, but that's just my opinion, okay? And then on talents, like I've been saying, he is not going to be an attack character, but you could run magic attack and boss damage. I would recommend these two probably more often than not, because like I said at the beginning of the video, Rill is more of a PvE character, so more often than not, I feel like you'll be using him in PvE against bosses and stuff like that. So you're probably going to want this skill, and you're probably going to want extra magic attack, okay? That's probably what you're going to want for Rill. If you don't want to go for the boss damage, I would still keep the magic attack, and I might go for like the crit rate. Okay, that's probably your best options for Rill. And then defense-wise, I would go for the flat 20%, and I would go for the defense stacking +4% and crit resist stacking +2% at the start of each wave. Going to help you a lot in PvE. And for support, This one you could honestly go for either. It just depends on what you want to do. But I would probably go for skill 2 because remember I said skill 2 does a lot, right? And since skill 2 does so many things in terms of debuffing the enemy, I'd probably go for the 20% chance to get skill 2 back, and I'd go for the damage resist. However, you could go for swiftness because his special skill stuns, and if you're looking to get that stun more often, you could go for swiftness, which will grant a SP +1 buff upon having less than 2 SPs. So if you have less than 2 SPs in your special move gauge, then this will give you an SP +1, just letting you get your special back a turn quicker. So that's kind of the options I would go for on Rill. You're not really going to want accuracy or penetration because he's a debuffer. You don't really necessarily need debuff immunity, and you don't necessarily need HP recovery. Okay, so those are kind of the talents I would go for on Rill. And then I really quickly, I kind of went over this, but I didn't say it exactly in terms of like upgrade priority for the skills. It should be skill 2 first because you get that extra buff removal, right? Then I would probably do your special skill because it scales. It's an AoE, so you want to scale the AoE attack. And then I would honestly almost do his combo skill, except for you can't use the special skill and combo skill together. So then I would do his primary skill. So in terms of upgrade, I would do skill 2, special skill, skill 1, combo skill. Okay, that's like your upgrade priority for Rill. Now let's talk about potential teams that he can fit on. So if we go to the teams here, I already have some set up. So right here, this would be a potential either PvE or PvP team actually. So this team right here in particular has been useful in squad boss for me. I've tried it out with the buff immunity that Rill does on the combo attack. It's pretty good. And then combining that with Julius's attack, it's really, really nice. And then Rill also has the incapacitate on his special. He also has the defense down and the increased damage to enemy with this skill 2, right? So Rill is a really, really good debuffer for PvE. Now this is also a PvP team, okay? Because you have a stun here, you have a stun here, and you have stuns here, okay? If you upgrade Mars, Mars stuns like all the time. All right, so this is a really, really annoying stun team. Now the thing is, you might not want to run Lotus here because when you run Lotus and Mars together, it changes the special skill for Mars and he doesn't actually stun anymore. So a better option might actually be something like this, where you have Rill, Julius, Charmy for healing and extra defense because she gives defense on her ultimate, and then Mars for a stun. So that is 3 characters who can stun. That's very annoying to play against, right? So this is definitely an option you could run in PvP just to annoy people. And then for team 5, the other team I have set up, this is another potential PvP or PvE option, but this one is a little bit different because the idea behind this team for PvP is that they are going to go first. They're probably going to have Valtos or they're going to have Finroll or whatever, right? And if they happen to kill anyone, they'll have to choose either Noelle or Rill probably, right? And realistically, most people are going to choose Noelle. Then you have Mimosa to res, right? And then you have Rill, even if you're going second, to do his stun, and you have radius barriers. And then if you wanted to, you have Noelle for her AoE after you revive her, right? And so Rill's going to do his skill 2 on the entire enemy team. And when you do a skill 2, right, it's going to reduce defense, it'll remove their buffs, and then it will also increase their damage taken. So then when Noelle does her AoE attack, you're just doing so much damage to the enemy team, right? So this is actually a really decent team right here for PvP, like a second team. If you're looking for a team that doesn't rely on speed, here's an option for you. Okay, so this is a team you can run for PvP, and this is a team you can run for either PvP or PvE. Okay, so hopefully that helps you guys out a little bit. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider going down there, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.